Do you remember the hue, the cry, the panic that was being portrayed by the lying legacy, corporate, corrupt mainstream media and the Democrats, that if John Bolton did not testify in the Senate about Donald J. Trump and what he knew about that Ukraine phone call, why justice could not be served, the entire impeachment process would then be considered a sham if the Republicans voted to acquit. Republicans held the line. They did not allow John Bolton to testify. Why? Because the Constitution doesn't allow it. Why? Because the constitutional process for impeachment, it is the House of Representatives that calls witnesses. It is in the House of Representatives where the witnesses give their testimony, not in the Senate. The Senate simply takes the case that is presented to them from the House and votes a straight up or down, guilty or innocent, acquit or not to acquit, removal from office. John Bolton could have testified before the House. Now, Adam Schiff didn't call him, and we're now finding out it's not because he worried that by executive order Trump wouldn't allow Bolton to testify. No, nay. Bolton refused to testify. Bolton told Adam Schiff that he would not testify before the House. And now we're finding out why. He wants to sell a book. And of all people, Lawrence O'Donnell, who is certainly no Trump supporter, is Mr. Conspiracy Theorist to the max. Lawrence O'Donnell at PMS NBC has finally come out and actually, in a random act of real journalism, has shown us what it is about John Bolton that nobody likes on the left or the right.
Tonight, John Bolton made his first public comments for money since the Senate impeachment trial in which Republicans blocked his appearance as a witness. Everything John Bolton says publicly these days is for money. When John Bolton was asked if Donald Trump's call with the president of Ukraine was perfect, John Bolton said, "You'll love chapter 14. John Bolton repeatedly gave answers like that about his book, for which he was paid a multi-million-dollar advance and which now awaits a security clearance by the Trump administration, which left John Bolton giving answers tonight like this. Well, I'd be happy to answer that question, except part of this is now involved in the pre-publication review of my book.
Why, just a couple of weeks ago, Brad Pitt, when receiving his Academy Award as Best Supporting Actor, said that he was only allowed 45 seconds to say thank you, which was 45 more seconds than John Bolton was given in the U.S. Senate. And of course, everyone applauded, and yay, way to go, woke Brad. Has anybody ever found any footage of anyone in Hollywood saying anything decent about John Bolton pre-impeachment of Donald Trump? John Bolton has always been hated and reviled by the left because he's a warmonger. He has been disliked and distrusted by a lot of us on the right for years. Why? Because he's a warmonger. His solution to every foreign policy is war. War with Iran, war with Iraq, war. This guy lives for war. Although he himself wouldn't have to serve in a war, he has no problem sending you or your sons to serve in war. That's the cretin John Bolton. And for weeks, we have watched the liberals, the left, the mainstream media, Democrats fall all over themselves to defend this guy, to uphold him as some type of foreign policy genius. And now we find out what we've all already known. He is a warmonger for profit. And since he is no longer in a place where he can direct presidents to go to war for his insatiable appetite for such, he will now do the obligatory write the tell-all book. And now we're finding out that the only reason he offered to testify in the Senate, because seeing as how now when he's asked questions about the Ukraine call, he says he can't answer them because it's in the section of his book that's under review for security purposes. What was he going to say in the Senate? He was going to use the Senate testimony as an infomercial to sell his book. That's John Bolton. And a former security advisor to President Obama called it as such.
This guy could have told the country what he knew about what happened on that call with Zelensky, what happened in the entire Ukraine corruption scandal at any moment in the impeachment inquiry, even though he wasn't called as a witness because the Republicans blocked it. He could have taken to the airwaves, could have gone on your show, Lawrence, and laid it out for people to hear and said he wants to profit off this book. Well, look, I mean, this is a guy who seems motivated above all by profit. And frankly, we've seen this in a lot of the Trump people who've left and written books.
But yet the left, in their never-ending hatred of Donald Trump, they still have to figure out a way to use John Bolton and his narrative against the Trump foreign policy as a way to hurt the president. So the same advisor who just admitted that everything that John Bolton does now is for profit, he's writing a tell-all book, not really to bring out the truth, but he wants to make some money. He then says, but his observations of Trump on foreign policy, we as Democrats absolutely ought to use that in the coming election.
At the same time, he's also telling us, in his own words, this man who was the longest-serving national security advisor for Trump, that Trump has been a complete failure on his key foreign policy initiatives.
Okay, which is it? Is he not to be trusted because he's a for-profit author now, a shock author? Or is his observations of Donald J. Trump with foreign policy the type of thing that we can really now hit the panic button over? Again, this is a warmonger, and it is no doubt that he hates Donald Trump's policies. Why? Because why Donald Trump wants to pull troops out of Iraq, out of the Middle East, not go to nuclear war with North Korea while we engage in this negotiation and debate, which he calls our North Korean policy a complete failure. Really? They aren't sending off any more nukes. Unlike previous administrations, Republican and Democratic, we aren't writing North Korea any checks of any kind. We're not giving them any money to try to make them behave. I would say in this little standoff, which right now is kind of polite, Trump has won. And Trump has made it abundantly clear that if North Korea doesn't behave itself, they will be met with swift force. And I believe that North Korea fully understands that. So that's a win, Mr. Bolton. Yes, it is time to end these endless wars in the Middle East, Mr. Bolton. That is not a failure of Donald Trump. That is a failure of George Bush. It is a failure of Barack Obama. The left, the swamp, the elite, the oligarch, they hate Donald Trump. But yet they are now forced to finally admit Bolton is just a seedy, nasty individual, and really he's just out trying to sell books now. And of all people, it is Lawrence O'Donnell. Talk about dramatic irony. It is Lawrence O'Donnell who has to set the Obama advisor straight on why really we shouldn't give any credence to anything John Bolton has to say.
Of course, John Bolton refused to testify in the inquiry in the House of Representatives when Colonel Vindman and others in the same position as John Bolton did testify, including people like Colonel Vindman, who were still employed, still working in the Trump White House. Bolton was a private citizen, could have done it. And then Bolton decides from out of nowhere, I'm willing to testify in the Senate trial, when he was pretty sure he wasn't going to have to. Here's what he said tonight about the Ukraine issues. This is as far as he would go. He said, for all the focus on Ukraine and the impeachment trial and all that, for me, there are portions of the manuscript that deal with Ukraine. I view that like the sprinkles on the ice cream sundae in terms of what's in the book. Ben, this is the book tour for the book that doesn't exist yet.
Wah, 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 wah. Epic fail on the part of John Bolton. Once again, Adam Schiff has been exposed for his incompetence. He's also been exposed for, again, lying to the American people, lying to the media. And at what point, and I think that's kind of where Lawrence O'Donnell is, at what point you're supposed to be our guy. We're giving you friendly press there, Mr. Schiff, and you keep sticking it to us and lying to us. You lied about John Bolton, about what he had to say, about his importance, and that he was ready and willing to testify. And now we find, no, he turned you down. And now the only reason he agreed to testify in the Senate was it was a pitch to sell books. There are cracks all over this election cycle, not only in the internal implosion of the Democratic Party and the fact that Mike Bloomberg is going to buy this nomination, and see ya, Bernie. And yes, don't fall for, oh, Hillary Clinton leaked that stuff about VP. Mike Bloomberg is not interested in her. Oh, yes, he is. Mike Bloomberg has bought everything. He bought the mayoral race in New York, and he wants to buy the White House. And this is why you are seeing all these people, including minority groups and LBGT groups and black groups, now coming out to endorse Bloomberg, despite the avalanche of video that is still yet to come on this guy, because he's never been vetted by the left. They were just so excited, so thrilled, they just couldn't contain themselves that we got a bigger billionaire to run against Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't win because he's a billionaire. Donald Trump won because he put America first, and he resonated with Americans. Donald Trump won because he did what Barack Obama said couldn't be done, which was restore the economy and bring manufacturing back. Oh, and by the way, isn't it interesting that now Obama's trying to take credit for that? All while he lampooned Donald Trump and his economic plans and what they would do, now Obama wants to take credit for it and tweet out that Mr. Trump has him, Obama, to thank for this economic recovery. What? Not even close. Nobody who's even remotely sane or lived through the 8 years of Obama is going to believe that hogwash. That is a total canard, a total fabrication. And by the way, it blows up the entire Democratic 2020 political strategy of we need socialism now. We need to get a socialist in there for radical reform because everything is so bad. Because now you've got the former Democratic president saying things are really good, and it was me. What Trump did was keep doing me. So now Obama is forcing the Democratic Party to embrace the Trump economy. These people, and their derangement of Donald Trump, and their hatred of him, and their hatred of his success for America, which they hate America too, it's causing them to do just insanely stupid things. Like Mike Bloomberg, the stuff that is still yet to come out about this guy. Oh, baby. Why are they doing all this? I told you over a year ago. I'm going to bring the theological in here. The curse causeless shall not come. God has a way of protecting people, and that doesn't mean that I think President Trump is the model Christian. We certainly know that he's not. But he has been the most pro-life, pro-Christian value president we have ever had, bar none. He's been certainly the most conservative governing president we've ever had. And I'm telling you, you like this, lump this, write me off as a nutcase, but God's got his back. He's just got his back. And look at everything that has been thrown at Trump and how it all boomerangs back on the people that try to throw it on him. That said, even John Bolton, Johnny Bolton, this whole thing has now backfired. And at some point, the media is going to have enough. And of all people, to think it started with Lawrence O'Donnell. Well, I do seem to recall a story in the Bible where God used a donkey, literally a mule, a jackass, to speak because the people weren't listening. seems a little bit appropriate for the scenario, does it not? Hey, that's it for this rant. Give us a big thumbs up and a like. Make sure you check your subscription status to this channel. Smack the bell for notification of my rants, and you do have to check the word all, otherwise you won't get any notifications. That said, you have a great rest of the day.